I'm Rochelle Kerwin. This video is about Year 3 Geometry and Measurement, specifically location and transformation. At this level, students are expected to create and interpret simple grid maps to show position and pathways. Now, all geometry, including spatial reasoning, is highly visual, so the following includes suggestions to enable access to this curriculum for blind and visually impaired students. You will need to identify and make reasonable adjustments to suit the needs and specific interests of students in your class. Understanding maps and grid references supports the development of spatial reasoning, which is more than having a good sense of direction. It's the ability to visualize locations or objects in relation to each other, to modify surroundings and recreate aspects based on visual experiences. It plays a unique role in developing creativity and technical innovation across a variety of disciplines. By the end of Year 2, students can typically interpret simple maps of familiar locations and use and follow directional language to construct arrangements of objects and navigate from place to place. You might find that some students need support in these foundational concepts before moving forward. You want to assimilate and build on students' pre-existing knowledge so students can eventually create their own grid maps of the classroom or playground as a final assessment. Activities must therefore be deliberately designed to reach a higher order of thinking to help comprehend this more precise means of representing our three-dimensional world in a two-dimensional manner. But how do we do that? The Van Heel theory is a framework for teaching geometry and considering levels of understanding. The levels are sequential and bound by experience rather than age. However, levels 3 and 4 are typically reached beyond primary school. When introducing grid maps, often students don't see the row-column arrangement without explicit teaching. So keep it simple using a rudimentary map of somewhere familiar. So here's a map of our school. It's just like a normal map. Here you can see the office, our classroom, and the assembly hall. What's special about this map is that it's split into squares, and this is called a grid. Now, the grid is a series of lines that divide the map into columns and rows. Each of these squares is labelled with a letter and a number. Now, these letters and numbers can help us find things on this map. Let's look at the office. If I want to find what square the office is in, I'll first run my finger across to find out the letter of the square. So it's in letter A. Then I'll run my finger up or down to find out the number of the square, and it's in number 1. So the office is in square A1. Keep in mind, we are not talking about coordinates here. Coordinates refer to an intersection of two lines, and grid references is talking about the space between the lines. Students learn in different ways, so provide multiple experiences to help your students learn this concept. Hands-on and kinesthetic activities support mathematics learning and engage students of all ability levels. So you might like to create a grid on your classroom floor using contrasting masking tape as a visual and tactile support for explicit teaching. Extend students' ICT capabilities and make the most of digital resources such as Google Maps and National Geographic. These can be projected onto small and large screens and allow students to toggle between street and aerial views. Display grid maps of the school ground and discuss pathways before moving from your classroom to other areas of the school. Students will need to mentally transform the shapes on the map to match the journey and the destination. Integrate grid maps through literature and thematic units to immerse students in spatial language and conceptual thinking outside of scheduled maths lessons, and give students the opportunity to consolidate knowledge and develop social skills through levelled gamification and interaction with their peers. Now, a variation on battleships can be played with paper grids or modified using geoboards with geobands and blue tack. For a more tactile option. You can change the level by increasing or decreasing the number of squares. The students can play in pairs, each taking turns to mark locations on their grid and describe the locations to their partner using the grid reference. Can your students get their boards to match? Targeted formative assessment will verify the effectiveness of your teaching and the progression of your students' knowledge and skills. This can take the form of open questioning, observations, written artifacts, and student self-assessment. Effective assessment of spatial reasoning must include a range of individual and group work activities. So when considering your approach, ask yourself these questions. What are the benefits of using this particular resource? The children like playing with it, but will they learn anything, and what data will it provide to me? How can activities be structured to reinforce these ideas? And can this activity be levelled in some way to aid revision or extension? So in conclusion, know your students, know the curriculum intent, and vary your instruction, and you'll set yourself up for success.